Welcome to the Beyond Ordinary Women podcast. Every 2 weeks, we post podcast versions of one of our free training videos, or you can access our videos now at beyondordinarywomen.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi, I'm Daigle of Beyond Ordinary Women Ministries, and I'm welcoming you to this video for leaders. If you're feeling overwhelmed, and I'm talking with Claudia McGuire, who is on our ministry team as well, and we have both dealt with feeling overwhelmed more than once, and we thought it would be great to have a conversation about that and maybe help you learn from some of the things that we've learned. So Claudia, as you think about feeling overwhelmed, what do you think about?
I think most of us feel overwhelmed in our lives anyway, whether we're, in a ministry position, leadership position, whatever. But I really want to just talk about if you find yourself in that place, really examine whether that's a feeling, is it just a season, is it a passing thing, or is this something that is consistently a part of my work that I'm feeling overwhelmed on a regular kind of basis.
Oh, that's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, so as you said, I think we've all felt that way in ministry before, and sometimes that feeling of being overwhelmed can go on for a few years. It's hard to address that feeling because you keep thinking, well, as soon as I get to this point, things are going to calm down a little bit. But
it doesn't happen very often, does it?
That way, no. And just to think about some of those reasons, some of those things that contribute to our feeling overwhelmed, or just too much responsibility. Maybe we just have taken on too much responsibility. Maybe part of that's been given or taken on. And I think those are things worth looking at. Sometimes we get in a position and we're so excited and we love it so much that kind of every little thing that comes down the pike we take on. And then we wake up in a couple years and go, this is so far from where I started, and I've taken on too much. Or, as you said, people figure out she is so good at that. Mm-hmm. So you keep getting little bits here and little bits there, and before you know it, your part-time position has become 3 positions. Right? And you really need to look at that.
And we're talking about part-time or even volunteers here too. They can feel as overwhelmed as, yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. In speaking with some women that I know that are in all of those positions, some were in volunteer positions, some are in leadership positions as a full-time staff person, some are in part-time positions. They talked about working overtime consistently. When they're really part-time or that wasn't part of their original job responsibility. Right. And it can really feel like a no-win situation when you get to that point where you're just given more and more and more. You don't have the hours for it, you don't have the capacity for it, and you just feel like, I can't win in this because here's the expectations of me, but the reality is I have another life, I have a family, I have these things, and I see other people around me in different positions that seem to be doing okay, but I'm not. I'm getting very, very overwhelmed by this.
And something that I learned several years ago, and I've learned it through just watching my friends as well, is that each of us has a different capacity for how much we can handle.
Yes.
And so just because someone else can do all those things at the same time well and easily without feeling overwhelmed doesn't mean that I can. Absolutely. Or vice versa. People can't look at me and say, well, if Kay can do it, so can I. Because each one has a different capacity, right. And we have a different life situation.
Absolutely.
Often. Yes. That's not always true, but if someone doesn't have as many, if we don't have both an aging parent and children, those multiply how much our capacity is being taken up by other things.
Yes.
And so there are different seasons of life where that capacity is drawn out by other sources than just the job.
That's true. That's very true. I think it also can contribute to feeling overwhelmed when we just have a little support on staff or in our position. There's little support, there's little encouragement, And it's very hard to work out here when you just don't feel like you're really a part of a team. You're excluded maybe a little bit from what other people might be experiencing, and that can definitely lead to feelings of being overwhelmed.
Well, and you know, I burned out a few years ago, and one of the big causes is I really assessed what was going on in my life, really was, because I had lost some close friends who were part of the larger staff that I worked with. And I no longer had those people that I could just talk to and have them help me think through what I was doing and how I was doing it. They weren't there anymore. And so I felt like I was handling it all by myself.
Oh, it makes a huge difference.
Yes, being isolated is makes it really hard.
It does make it really hard. I think there's another thing that we fall into sometime that's I just call it false thinking. That, you know what, God gave me this opportunity to be in this role or in this ministry. I'm doing this for God. I should be able to handle this. Almost like a shame on me for feeling overwhelmed. It's not about me. And that needs to be named too, because we allow a lot of that to just overcome us and overwhelm us when we're feeling like, I should not feel this way. You fill in the blank, but I should not blank. Well, the reality is God might have you in that position for a reason, for you to assess your life. As you said, where are you? What's going on in your life? What are you experiencing that is adding to these feelings of being overwhelmed? And I just think it's that we need to think through those thoughts that come through our head, like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. There's a reason.
I bet Moses felt that way. You know the story in Exodus where he had people coming to him all day, and he was supposed to judge through their situations. And his father-in-law had to come to him and say, you're killing yourself. You're going to kill yourself if you keep doing this. Well, I'm sure he felt like these people are my responsibility, that God has given them to me, and I'm supposed to do this. Sometimes it takes somebody outside of your own thinking to say, yes, they are yours, but maybe God has given you other people to help you with this. Maybe you're not supposed to be handling all this by yourself.
I agree.
So just because God has put you in a position doesn't mean it has to be done that way.
Oh, absolutely. Because I totally agree with you in that, I think it's very important in looking at just ways to overcome this feeling of being overwhelmed is to really do a time management check or an assessment of how and where you are spending your time, not only in your ministry and your place of work, but in your home. You know, and what is it that isn't working for you? What is it that you're doing that there's really no fruit, or there's no return value, or is there something that can be changed or delegated or even dropped? Those are not bad words. I do think you need to assess what is going on and what is leading me to being overwhelmed. Again, we talked about it in feeling overlooked, that when you feel overwhelmed, don't just stuff those feelings. Start exploring, why am I feeling that way? And as you said, it's great to have a tribe of people, close people that you can confide in, that it's not going to go any further. And I'm not talking about 9 or 10, 2 or 3, or sometimes it's just one, that you can process these feelings and these realities with and get some good input, also some prayer on that you can see truth, and that you can have the conversation that you need to have with someone about these things that are leading to you feeling like you are so overwhelmed that you're not sure you can keep up with the ministry that you now have or with the job that you now have.
Yes, I definitely believe those other people, not who support you, one, but also other people who can see the bigger picture and help you see where maybe you can change some things, that possibly you're causing part of the problem. It's not always the job. Some of it is how you choose to handle the job. Do you put up any boundaries? Do you say, I'm not going to work on Sunday?
Yes.
Just so that you have that time of rest to help recharge yourself. There are all sorts of ways to handle it, but outside people, a coach, somebody else doing a similar ministry somewhere else, or it can be someone in the ministry that you can confide in.
Exactly. And I think the thing to really look for is an encourager, but also a truth teller.
Absolutely.
Because there are a lot of people who just tell you how great you are and wonderful you are, and oh, you work so hard, but you really want somebody who, as you said, is able to come in and go, I see this in you, and you're amazing, but you are in over your head, or you need to build a team, or I see you. We want truth tellers, not just people that will make us feel good about it.
Yes, I remember one time I had a woman come to me. She was doing the women's ministry in her church as I was. And she came to me and she told me that the women in her church just wouldn't volunteer. They expected her to do everything. And I did everything I could to convince her that she was enabling them to do that she needed to find ways. God has planned the church where we are sharing responsibility. It is not ever supposed to be one person taking it on. So I had to tell her the truth. I don't know if she ever really did anything with it. The fact that she never came back to me is probably an indication she didn't.
Sometimes we don't want to hear those things, but it's so important that we do. If we're really trying to evaluate, why am I consistently feeling overwhelmed in this role? What have I done? What am I allowing others to do to me? Right. What time am I allowing them to take from me that I really might need to fight for and get back a little bit?
Well, thank you, Claudia. I think this is a very important conversation to have. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, please feel free to contact us at Beyond Ordinary Women Ministries. If you don't have other people in your life that can help you assess what's going on and how to fix things, we will work and pray with you to come up with some ideas of what to do. You also may be interested in watching the other 2 videos that we have prepared on feeling overlooked and also trying to figure out, is it time to move on? So thank you, Claudia.
Thanks for listening to the Beyond Ordinary Women podcast. You can find more podcasts and information about women in leadership by going to beyondordinarywomen.org. This podcast was produced by Beyond Ordinary Women Ministries. Our production team includes Evelyn Babcock, Kay Daigle, Kay Halligan, Deborah Herring, Sharifa Stevens, and John Sparks. Theme music, Back in Stride by Don Miller, used by courtesy of Christine Miller.